New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hey everybody, it is the Saturday Science of Mind and Spirit conversation. My name is Tracy Brown and I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be here always, and I'm happy that you have joined us. I'm looking at the controls across the top of the screen and seeing we've got people in the room. We've got people watching on YouTube. We've got people on the New Thought Media Facebook page. We've got people from 2 other Facebook pages. And I just want to welcome you. And if you'd like to let us know you're watching, welcome Shay. So happy to see you. And Wayne. Good, we're all over the place. And Lori and a few other people who are not saying good morning, but we are saying good morning or good afternoon or good evening to you. One of the things that's so great about New Thought Media Network is that we reach and serve people all over the globe, including Fiona from Geneva, Switzerland, who you can also hear giving morning or evening prayers often right here on the New Thought Media Network. So you're watching, tell your friends, send them the link to this show or one of the many, many shows about all aspects of bringing the New Thought philosophy to life in our world today. So just in case someone's watching for the very first time, the Saturday Morning Science of Mind and Spirit conversation series is brought to you by a team of people. So every Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, one of the team members is here to share with you information about a chapter in the Science of Mind textbook during the first 8 months of the year. And during the last 4 months of the year, we go to the Science of Mind archives and library and share other key writings related to understanding and applying science of mind principles in our daily lives. So we are in the third month of the year. I had to think, wait, are we still in February? No, we are in March, and we are with chapter 5 in the Science of Mind textbook, and chapter 5 is titled Body. Body. Now, I'm going to talk about what that means. I'm going to encourage you, if as I share what Ernest Holmes wrote about body, if you have an example or if you have a question, do not hesitate to put it in the chat, and I'll either address it verbally or bring that into the conversation. So, chapter 5, body. Let me give you a little bit of context. So, at the very beginning of the Science of Mind textbook, there are 4 introductory chapters. And in those 4 introductory chapters, Ernest Holmes basically summarizes the entire book. Like, what is spirit, God? What is the universe? What is it? And how does it work? And how can we use it? And that really, if you only read those 4 chapters, you would understand, or those 4 sections, you would understand a lot about science of mind. Then he begins the book, and as some of you have heard Reverend Mark Gilbert refer to, Ernest Holmes really has the book determined or divided into some sections. We're on a journey in this book. The first part of the book, the first third of the book, really is understanding the nature of God itself, the nature of life, the nature of this infinite intelligence that has no form, but we try to find a name for it. And then in through the middle of the book, a lot of the book is focused on, so how do we understand that in and apply it to humanity or the human process? Like, how do the laws show up in the human experience? And then the third part, major part of the book, goes into, now let's take it beyond. Let's look at the mystical experience. And then there are lots and lots of resources in the back section of the book. So at chapter 5, as you might imagine, we are very much in the part of the book that is simply explaining to us infinite intelligence and how it works. So in chapter 3, Ernest Holmes simply focused on spirit. What is spirit? Chapter 4, Ernest Holmes focused on soul. What is the subjective law and what is soul? And now we're on chapter 5 and diving into body. So spirit, soul, and body. I share that with you because when we hear the word body, it's easy to think that we are talking about our human physical body. And then when you remember, oh no, what Ernest Holmes is doing in this part of the book is he is talking about how the invisible intelligence, the infinite wisdom, how does this universal life work? He's not just talking about the human experience. However, thinking about the human body can help us understand that when we are talking about body in this context, we are talking about what we experience in the physical realm, right? Spirit is invisible. You cannot see it, touch it, taste it, right? Feel it. You cannot, right? See it. You cannot hear it with your human ear. It's not physical. And soul is also invisible because it's the creative medium through which spirit creates. So whenever something now has been created, it becomes physical, and we would put it under the umbrella of body. So this chapter 5 starts off with something that is basically what I just paraphrased. The universe has been called the Great Trinity, or the triune unity of spirit, soul, and body. The body being the result, the effect, the objectification of spirit. Soul is the immaterial, plastic, and receptive medium. It's primordial or cosmic stuff. It's unmanifest form. Body is the result of spirit working through soul or law. The entire manifestation of spirit, both visible and invisible, is the body of God. So one thing that we want to start with is this quote on page 98. Body means the entire manifestation of spirit on all planes. Key word here, manifestation. So what we know about God, about spirit, about the universe is it is all of all, right? It is all encompassing. It is everything. Everything is created from it. So it's invisible at that level, but what we engage with, what we interact with, has a physical element. So it is the manifestation of spirit's ideas, of spirit's creativity, of spirit's desire to express itself or to experience life in an infinite number of ways. So body is not defined by just thinking a physical human body, but any and all manifestations of spirit. Another definition, also on page 98, the word body, as used in science of mind, means all objective manifestations of the invisible principle of life. Why is this important? It's important for a lot of reasons. One, to remind us there is a triune nature of God, that it's not that there are three gods or God is three different things, but the integration of the creative process requires us to understand, right? It begins in the invisible, that instruction or direction or desire then goes through the soul or the subjective mind that has access to any and everything needed to create or deliver or manifest that intention into a physical form, which then becomes the body or the manifestation. So we're on chapter 5 in the Science of Mind, and and it is really easy once you understand that basic to relate the concept of body to the law of cause and effect. So on pages 98, 99, and the very top of page 100, Ernest Holmes simply repeats different ways for you to consider and understand and think about what is meant by the term body, and to move away from our human tendency to make everything about us. So after you go through those 2 pages and a little at the top of page 100, most people, especially in classes, sometimes I'll have people read pages 98 and 99 out loud because it makes us slow down. And by the time you've said it the 7th time, that body is always an effect, never a cause, right, on page 99. Or the body is necessary, or, right, the expression in physical form is simply the reflection or the manifestation of what was set into motion in the invisible. And understanding that at this point in the study of the science of mind is critical because it gets more complicated, right? Once we add or layer in that our human process is mirroring this universal spiritual process or principle. So body is always an effect. It is never, ever, ever a cause. So on page 100, Ernest Holmes starts a new section titled That Which Changes. And the first sentence, first part of it reads like this. We have learned that spirit is the absolute being, that it is the only thing in the universe which has self-knowingness, volition, choice, or will. The soul is the servant of the spirit, and it has no choice, no purpose other than to execute the purpose given to it. So the spirit of the universe cannot change, being all. It's everything. There's nothing for it to change into. And the soul of the universe must obey the will of spirit. Therefore, the body or the manifestation of the universe cannot help changing. This is what constitutes the eternal activity of spirit within itself, through itself, by itself. Okay, if you're reading along with me, you know I'm doing a little paraphrasing here. And the constant eternal activity of spirit within itself requires that spirit must pass into form in order to have any experience of a particular thing or of a particular form, of a particular way of experiencing life. Because spirit in its raw natural existence is everything, has everything. So if it wants to experience, I want to have the experience of being a river that flows and then feeds into an ocean. It has to create itself into that form for a focused experience of that. We can look at the humanity and say that spirit wants to experience itself in more than 8 billion iterations. And that is why there are more than 8 billion human beings experiencing life and experimenting with how to reflect those qualities of the creator of all life: love, harmony, beauty, wholeness, joy, peace. And every human being has the opportunity. But do not get stuck there. Remember that we are not just talking about the human body. So I recently visited Nairobi, Kenya, in Africa, and it was so inspiring to see the water buffalo up at the top of the hill and look at, these three animals in all of their majesty and be like, wow, that's God. And to see the monkeys who were all over the property, and at different times of the day, they would cover the pathway, the sidewalk, and be on the side and see the mother feeding a baby, and 10 monkeys in the tree and 20 or 30, on the sidewalk looking at us like, oh, you're here. Well, this is our home. We'll let you pass or not. And to take a breath and go, oh my goodness, this is the creation or the manifestation of God in the form of these, several dozen monkeys right here. And I'm looking at them. They were an idea in the mind of God, or they were an idea that Spirit had for creating itself and experiencing life in a certain way. It was equally inspiring to be awake early in the morning and watch the sunrise when I was in Egypt in 2023, to stand between the paws of the Sphinx, which was created by man, by humanity, and watch and feel the sunrise and bring light into the day and beauty into the day, and think, wow. Now, I will say to you that in the way my brain works, and culturally, the way that I integrate many different cultures, I did hear myself silently say in my brain, "Ain't God something? Ain't God something? Look at the sunrise. Feel the warmth. Look at the colors in the sky change." And that is Spirit experiencing itself in the way that nature adapts, because there are planets, and there are planets in orbit around other planets. And my experience of that is seeing or feeling the heat of the sun rise and the beauty of the colors in the sky. That is body, as we are talking about it in chapter 5 of the Science of Mind textbook. Body is the physical expression or the physical manifestation of the intention, of the potentiality, of the decision to express itself. So, I share these examples because it is tricky if you're new to or not deeply embedded in the Science of Mind philosophy. Sometimes it's difficult to get into what Ernest Holmes means and how he used language. And so body is one of the places where people often get a little hung up with, wait a minute, what are you talking about here? On page 101, Ernest Holmes reminds us of this. If the formless did not take form, Spirit would never arrive at self-realization. Repeating, if the formless, if the idea of it, if the intention to use the unlimited resources in a particular way did not happen, then there would not be the experience of self-realization, of being able to realize, oh, this is what it means, this is what it feels like, this is what it looks like, tastes like, here's what the experience is. Everything we see, touch, taste, feel, hear, or grasp with the physical senses is body, is an effect. Everything that we see, touch, taste, yes, I can correct that typo. Everything we see, touch, taste, feel, hear, or grasp with our physical senses is an effect, not affect or affect, effect. So it's an effect, which means it is the manifestation of the invisible intention set, or the desire transformed into form. And that would be what we refer to as body. I hope this is making sense to you. I really, really hope it's making sense to you. If you have easy access to the comments, I'd love it if you just said, yes, it's making sense, or I understand, or this is perfect, or maybe you have questions about what I'm saying. And if so, you can put those in the chat or in the comments as well. Because understanding spirit, soul, and now body are fundamental to the understanding of science of mind and how it works. And keep in mind, we are talking about chapter 5, and we've got more than 20 chapters to go. So, like many other philosophies, if you don't understand the fundamentals, it becomes really confusing when you get to the application of the fundamentals, especially applying the fundamentals in our daily lives. So thanks. Yes, it makes sense. Yes, we are always co-creating. And so when we are co-creating, we understand. And then there's a question. Why does God need self-realization? Why does God need self-realization? I love you, Shay Davis, because you ask some of the best questions. And that question has come up when I've been in class, and so in different classes, and it is a logical question. So here's what I'm going to say about this. God, spirit, doesn't need self-realization the way that we think of the word need in our human lives. However, in living, in expressing, there is the process of realizing that I'm going to talk about this as if God is a person. I know I'm anthropomorphizing God. I'm simply doing this to help it make sense to our human brains. I am God. I have unlimited resources, and everything that can be created and everything that's needed to create anything is right here. But it's all. It is everything. All happening, all the parts happening together. But if I put these individual parts together in a certain way and put them out there, I wonder how that's going to work. I wonder if I use these resources and these laws this way, let's see what happens. So Ernest Holmes, that was a quote, needing or spirit would never arrive at self-realization. It would never arrive at the experience of all the different combinations in different ways, because everything is just present. So this idea of self-realization, self-realizing the potentiality and experiencing it. I might even use the word experience the multiplicity, which Ernest Holmes talks about in this chapter, experiencing the unlimited combinations. But I don't really know what it's like until I combine A, B, and C. And then the next time I combine A, B, and D. And the next time I combine A, B, and X. Let's see what happens. So, and in doing that, in seeing what happens, spirit then discovers, or the word I prefer is experiences. Oh, well, that's what would happen, or that's what happens. Wow. So the word need, we think about it from a human perspective. And Shay, you are so on target, because I'm guessing the reason you ask that is like spirit doesn't need anything. Spirit has everything. And that is true. So why does an artist paint another painting? Because there's an image, or there's just the adventure of, let me use these colors a different way and see what happens. Or there's an image of, if I use those shapes together in this way, I would think it'll look like this. And then as they create it, they experience it. So spirit is all about experiencing itself. And then everything it creates has an experience of experiencing life in the way that is matched to its unique combination of qualities and characteristics. I sure hope that doesn't make it more confusing. And I love this comment. Why does spirit need to experience self-actualization? I would suggest it's just for the joy in the experiencing of it. Joy is, again, a human emotion or feeling. But if we are going to anthropomorphize the infinite intelligence that is creating life, and that's what it does, it creates life, it expresses life, it expands life, it evolves life. That's what it does. And yeah, if we put the human qualities there, it's probably pretty cool. Like, oh, man, look what happened there. Look what that looks like. Look what that is. And all of it is that gets created is what this chapter is about. Body. In the triune nature of spirit, soul, body, chapter 5 is all about body, the physical manifestation of life in all its forms on all planes. I say that again because I don't want us to forget that everything we see, touch, taste, feel, hear, or grasp with the physical senses is an effect. It is the body of God, the body of infinite intelligence. So on page 101, in the middle, Ernest Holmes starts a new chapter, or new subchapter, a new subsection in the chapter titled Cause and Effect. First paragraph, it's short. Effect is that which did not make itself, but must have a power back of it causing it to be. All manifestation, all body is effect and is subject to its cause. Ernest Holmes simply emphasizes and repeats. It's a little funny to me sometimes because when I'm reading the Science of Mind textbook, I'll be like, you already said that. Like, wait a minute. Wait, didn't I read that 5 minutes ago? Or wait a minute, wasn't that in that chapter, like at the beginning in the introduction? Ernest Holmes repeats, and gives us the context over and over again until we get it. And sometimes that means we read the entire book 15 or 20 or 35 times before we get it. But every time we read it, we get a little bit more of what these basic universal spiritual principles are teaching us. So the law of cause and effect, the principle of cause and effect, really does require us to understand that there is cause and there is effect, and body, in the context of Science of Mind, is all about the effect of the universal or spiritual creation. So saying that out loud makes me think it might be helpful to do a little bit of a clarification. A lot of times when we talk about the law of cause and effect, we're talking about, again, in our human life, if I do A, B is going to happen. If I'm mean to people, people are going to be mean to me, right? The karmic effect, or the cause and effect at an emotional level. But let me remind you, we are in chapter 5 of the Science of Mind textbook, and we are focused on how does the universe work. We're not talking about petty human behavior. We are talking about the infinite intelligence and how it operates, so that we can understand life itself in its broadest, purest form. So, as I am mentioning cause and effect, I am talking about it on a universal scale, not on an interpersonal scale. On the universal infinite intelligence scale, not on the interpersonal human dynamics scale. One more time. Cause and effect on the universal spiritual principle context, or within that context, not in the context of somebody did me wrong and I'm going to get them back, or they're going to get punished for it. So in that section that begins on page 101, Ernest Holmes begins to break that down and reminds us that involved with the idea which the spirit drops into the creative medium is everything necessary to bring this idea into form. Spirit never thinks of methods or processes, for that which the Spirit involves must evolve. So the self-knowingness of God does produce involution, and then evolution is the passing of thought into manifestation. So Ernest Holmes then goes on to talk quite a bit about evolution. Evolution is the effect of intelligence. Evolution is not the cause of the thought. Okay, the quote on the screen is, evolution is an effect of intelligence and not the cause of it. Evolution is not creating intelligence. Intelligence is projecting or creating evolution by the nature of the fact that intelligence is creating something new, and then everything else has to adjust to that. It is not that the way things are created the change. The change is created by the things that are, change happens because the things that are created then are living or expressing life in the way they are meant to express life, which produces a change in the world, a change in how nature interacts with nature, a change in how life expresses life. But the source of that is an effect of infinite intelligence. And Ernest Holmes then builds into this conversation, the next section, unity and multiplicity. And it was interesting. It still is interesting to me that he put this here in the section on body. And there's a lot more about unity and multiplicity later in the book when we're talking about humanity and the human experience of these principles. But in this part in chapter 5, it starts by using the reference of the human body so that we can understand it. The stuff out of which our human bodies are made, it's the same etheric substance from which all things are made. The one mind conceives all things. From unity, which is the one, the wholeness, that everything is right here. All the parts that make up, that can be used to make up anything are here. That's the one. Quote, from unity, which is the one, back of all things, through the one law, which is the medium of all action, multiplicity is manifested. But the many never contradict the unity of the whole. When we realize we are dealing with an infinite intelligence and an infinite law within this intelligence, we see that no limit can be placed upon creative principle. Perfect example. The acorn contains everything it needs in order to become the oak tree. And so we think of an evolution that, we have this huge oak tree and, it evolved in its own expression of life from stage to stage to stage to stage. But that acorn that was created had everything in it to experience all the stages of life, including that stage being that stage called an old oak tree. So it's not super complicated, but sometimes it makes our heads go on tilt because it's bigger than what we often think of in our human experience. So there are a couple more pages in this chapter, and I love that in the discussion of unity and multiplicity, Ernest Holmes challenges us by saying, could we, or if we were able to understand absolute causation, we would be able to perceive it to be infinite intelligence, pure intelligence, operating through perfect law, and then producing the effects which live and have their being. He goes on right after that to say, this happens not by virtue of an isolated life, but by reason of a universal unity which permeates everything. We would then see that the world of multiplicity is deeply rooted in a universe of unity. Nothing happens by chance. We live under a government of law, from the vast planetary system to a garden of roses, from the archangel to the saint and the sinner, through good and even in what is called evil. Subjective causes. We should not separate life from living, spirit from matter, nor divine principle from universal creation. So all of this is helping us understand that the body is simply the manifestation on all different planes in all different forms. When we use the term body in science of mind, in the context of spirit, soul, body, we are talking about the physical manifestation and the evolution from idea through the law into the effect or the body. So, wow, there are a few other things I would like to share, but I do want to honor the time, and we try very hard to be 50 minutes or less so that you can have a little break if you're going to jump into whatever is happening at the top of the hour. So I'm going to close with two final quotes. When the knowledge of this unity comes alike to all, the tread of armies will cease, and the bugle call will echo the soft notes of brotherly love. Even though this chapter really is about what is happening in infinite intelligence and universal spirit, I love that Ernest Holmes says, you know what, if everybody understood this, then we would stop all the fighting and we would care about other people, because they are simply equal manifestations from the same source of one light. They are the body of Christ. They are of Christ consciousness. They are the body of the one creator of all life as well. And so he drops this in at the very end of this discussion of unity and multiplicity. And then he goes on to say, related to the body of life itself and immortality, in the subjective world, there must be a correspondent of everything in the objective world. Intelligence is the ultimate creative agency of the universe. Intelligence is the ultimate creative agency of the universe. This is actually the last sentence in the entire chapter. A divine mental picture is created by the universe, by God, by love, by the creator of all life itself. And that is the ultimate creative agency of the universe. It has created me. It has created you. It has created the squirrel. It has created the tulip, the pansy. It has created the planets, which results in the seasons because of the way the planets interact. Yes, Shay. being the lion or being the gazelle, being the Jew, and being the German soldier, being the predator and the prey. And a lot of this is really important for us to think about, because really spirit creates, and then especially on these elements that are about human beings, we are created differently, and then we create our experience. So spirit didn't set up the world that there would be Jews and Germans who would hate, who would experience hate. That came from the human part of creation, that we are going to create a hierarchy. Spirit created different types of people who experience and express differently. But we as human beings have to take responsibility for creating a hierarchy where some people are hated and some people are revered. That was not God's idea. Which, when we get to some of those later chapters and we are talking about the expression of spirit itself in human form and how we then use it, then we will begin to see how we then are using the creative process and maybe not using it in the best possible way to reflect the values and the characteristics of the infinite intelligence that has created us from itself to be expressions of itself on earth or in the world. That's all the time I have. So that is, wow, that's like a teaser for something we won't be talking about for 3 months, 3 months from now. So please come every Saturday and get all of the information that comes in between now and the time we are talking about multiplicity in the human form. Thank you so much for all the great comments and the questions and the thoughts today. Join us every Saturday for another chance to dive deeper and to embody science of mind more fully. I'm so glad that you are with us today, and I hope to see you again soon, either right here on the Saturday morning Science of Mind or some other show during the week. Have a good week, everybody.